हेलो फ्रेंड्स, आज मैं आपको चार्ल्स लैम्ब के बारे में पढ़ाऊँगी। फुल बायोग्राफी। चार्ल्स लैम्ब 1775 1775 में पैदा हुआ एंड 1834 में उनकी डेथ हो गई। बर्थ 10 फरवरी 1775 इन क्राउन ऑफिस रॉ द टेम्पल लंदन। Death 27 December 1834 erysipelas due to a slight fall which caused his death। उनके फादर का नाम है जॉन एंड मदर एलिजाबेथ लैम्ब। Some facts about Charles Lamb. Lamb's elder brother John was a scholar at Church Hospital. At the age of 7, Lamb was sent to Christ's Hospital. He was a fellow pupil of St. College. Lamb obtained a clerkship in the account office of the East India Company. Anna Simmons was his beloved. मतलब एना सिमंस थी जिनसे वो लव करते थे. He adopted a little girl named Emma Isolo. The death of Coleridge in 1834 affected him. Leaving school at 15, he found employment in the South Sea House. He used to pass his holidays at Blacksware in Hertfordshire, where his maternal grandmother, Mrs. Field, was housekeeper into the family of the Plumbers. He fell in love with Anna Simon, but she married a pawnbroker named Bartram. His sister killed her mother and wounded her father. Lee Grice and Leloid were his faithful friends. At the end of 1795, Lamb had to spend 6 weeks in a private asylum. In 1803, he wrote a poem on Hester Savory, a Quaker girl whom he met occasionally in his walks in Pentonville. In 1820, Lamb began to write for London magazine under the name of Elia. Some important essays from the pen of Charles Lamb. Dream Children, a Reverie. The Confession of a Drunkard Wedding. The Old and the New Schoolmaster. All Fools' Day, a bachelor's complaint to the behavior of married people. Night Fears, Crates Hospital 5 and 30 years ago. The Old Benchers of the Inner Temple. My Relations, Poor Relations, Micry and in Hertfordshire. Mrs. Battle's Opinions, The South Sea House, Imperfect Sympathies, Popular Fallacies, The Death of Coleridge. On some of the old actors, on the acting of Mundan, Witches and Other Night Fears. Modern Gallantry, Oxford in the Vacation. A chapter on years. Captain Jackson, a Quakers meeting. The New Year's Eve newspapers 35 years ago. The Sun and the Brook, by Rivers and Streams. The Praise of Chimney Sweepers. The Dissertation upon Roast Pig. Black Smoor in Ayrshire. The Child Angel, Old Chin, The Two Races of Man. Mrs. Battle's Opinions on Whist. The Decay of Beggars in the Metropolis. An Acquaintance with Major Works. इनके जो मेजर वर्क्स हैं इनको भी आप याद कर लीजिए, ये एग्ज़ाम में ज़रूर पूछे जाते हैं. Essays of Elia. Essays of Elia is Lamb's collection of essays. It is published in 1823. 1823 में पब्लिश हुई. Lamb's essay first appear in the London magazine. He writes under the pseudonym Elia. The name Elia is borrowed from an old Italian clerk at the South Sea House. This collection of essays includes the following essays: The South Sea House, Oxford in the Vacation, Christ's Hospital 5 and 30 years ago, The Two Races of Man, and New Year's Eve. फ्रेंड्स, मैं आपको चार्ल्स लैम्ब के मेजर वर्क के बारे में बता रही हूँ. नंबर 6 नंबर है मिसेस बैटल्स ओपिनियन ऑन वेस्ट, अ चैप्टर ऑन ईयर्स, ऑल फूल्स डे, अ क्वेकर्स मीटिंग, द ओल्ड एंड द न्यू स्कूल मास्टर, वैलेंटाइन डे, imperfect sympathies, witches and other night fears, my relations, my Macri and in Hertfordshire, modern gallantry, the old benchers of the inner temple, grace before meat, my first play, dream children are rabri, distance correspondence, the praise of chimney sweeper, a complaint of the decay of beggars in the metropolis, a dissertation upon roast pig, a bachelor's complaint of the behavior of married people, on some of the old actors, on the artificial comedy of the last century, on the acting of Mundan. Last Essays of Elia. Last Essays of Elia is Lamb's collection of essays. It is the second volume of essays. It is published in 1833 and includes the following essays. And number first, a black smoor in Shire, poor relations, detached thoughts on books and reading, stage illusion to the shade of Illistonia, the old Margate Hoe, the convalescent, sanity of true genius, Captain Jackson, the supernaturate man, the gentle style of writing, Barbara S., the tombs in the abbey, amicus redivivus, some sonnets of Sir Philip Sidney, newspapers 35 years ago. And next number है Baroners of the imaginative faculty in the productions of modern art, the wedding rejoicings upon the New Year's coming of the age-old Jean, the Jean Angel, a dream, confession of a drunkard, popular fallacies. फ्रेंड्स, अब मैं बताऊंगी आपको टेल्स फ्रॉम शेक्सपियर. Tales from Shakespeare 1807 is a collection of prose tales of Shakespeare's 20 plays. It is the collaborated adventure of Lamb and his sister Mary Lamb. Lamb writes the tales of 6 tragedies, which his sister Mary writes the tales of 14 comedies. It is a children's book. 20 plays are adapted into tales. The comedies which Mary Lamb handles are The Tempest, A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Winter's Tales, Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It, Two Gentlemen of Verona, The Merchant of Venice, Cymbeline, All's Well That Ends Well, The Taming of the Shrew, The Comedy of Errors, Miser of Miser, Twelfth Night, Paracelsus, Prince of Tyre. Charles Lamb writes the tales of tragedies, which includes King Lear, Macbeth, Timon of Athens, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark and Othello. फ्रेंड, अब मैं आपके क्वेश्चन आंसर के स्टार्ट कर रही हूँ, जिसकी आप प्रैक्टिस कर लीजिए. इसमें कोई ना कोई क्वेश्चन 2-3 नंबर के आएंगे ज़रूर. Who called Lamb the gentle-hearted Charles? किसने कहा? कॉलेज ने. Who referred Lamb as Lamb the Frolic and the Gentle? Wordsworth. Essays of Elia appeared in 1823. Last essays of Elia appeared in 1833. Lamb is called the Prince of English Essayists. The essay Supernaturate Man is authored by Lamb. Lamb began his career as a poet. All are gone, the old familiar faces. This line is from the pen of Lamb. Lamb's prose work, A Tale of Rosamund Grey and All Blind Margaret 1797, is a novel. Tales from Shakespeare 1807 were written in collaboration. Who were the collaborators? Lamb and his sister Mary. The South Sea House was first published in the London Magazine in August 1820. Which company was established in 1710 with the promise of a monopoly of trade with the South American colonies? The South Sea Company. Christ's Hospital 5 and 30 years ago was published in London Magazine in November 1820. Recollections of Christ's Hospital is written by Lamb. Lamb contributed two critical essays on the genius and character of Hogarth and on the tragedies of Shakespeare, considered with reference to their fitness for stage representation. Two Light Hunts. The Reflector. Lamb also tried his hand in writing plays in 1806. His fate was accepted at Drury Lane, but it was a failure. Named the Fates, Mr. H., who composed the poem A Farewell to Tobacco. Lamb. Lamb sent a proposal for marriage a friend, but this friend declined the proposal. Who was this friend? Miss Kelly. Who was the editor of London Magazine? John Scott. Lamb's first essay published in London Magazine of 1820 was a reminiscence entitled Recollection of the South Sea House. Lamb adopted the name of Elia as a pen name for his works. The Elia was an Italian person who was a fellow clerk at the South Sea House. Satan in Search of a Wife 1833, a comic ballad of the devil's private life, is authored by Lamb. And Lamb the Frolic and the Gentle, how vanished from his lonely heart. These lines are from the pen of Wordsworth. Charles Lamb, to those who know the justly dear, for rarest genius and for sterling worth. ये वर्ड किसने कहे हैं? रॉबर्ट साउथली ने. These are essays like Bacon of more massive greatness and others like Sir Thomas Browne, who can attain loftier height of eloquence, but here is no other who has an equal degree of power to charm, who comments in this. Hugh Walker, who describes himself as villainously pranked in an affected array of antique words and phrases. फ्रेंड्स, इसका आंसर है लैम. नो एसिस्ट इज मोर egotistical than lamb, but no egotist can be so artless and yet so artful, so tearful and yet so mirthful, so pedantic and yet so human. Whose commands is this? E. Albert ने बोला है. In which essay does Lamb tell us his goodbye to the East India Company? The Supernaturate Man. Lamb speaks of his father under the name of Lowell. Lamb's sister Mary appears as cousin Brigade. I quoted I quoted the fair Alice W.N. and as much as children could understand, I explained to them what coyness and difficulty and Daniel meant in medians who said, Lamb in dream children. His great and dear spirit haunts me. I cannot think a thought, I cannot make a criticism of man or books without an ineffectual turning to him who was the touchstone of all my cogitations. He was a Grecian at Christ's Hospital, where I was deputy Grecian, and the same subordination and difference to him I have preserved through a lifelong acquaintance who said, Lamb in death of Coleridge. Lamb is silent, but a person identify the person. His own mother. God had preserved to me my senses. I eat and drink and sleep and have my judgment. I believe very sound. Who wrote these words? ये किसने word लिखे हैं? Lamb in a letter to Coleridge. I missed his kindness and I missed his crossness and wished him to be alive again, to be quarreling with him rather not have him again. Who said lamb in dream children? Dream children ने lamb में बोला. We are not of Alice, nor of thee, nor are we children at all. The children of Alice call Bertram father. We are nothing less than nothing and dreams. We are only what might have been and must wait upon the tedious shores of Leith millions of ages before we have existence and a name. Who said lamb in dream children? Lamb's style is inseparable from his humor, of which it is the expression. His whim-whams, as he called them, found their best expression in the quaint word and antique phrases and multiplied and sometimes far-fetched, yet never forced compassion in which he abounds. Strip Elia of these and he is nothing whose comments in this Hugh Walker. In everything that related to science, I am a whole encyclopedia behind the rest of the world. I should have sacredly cut a figure among the Franklins or country gentlemen in King John's days. Where do these lines appear? Lamb in the old and new schoolmaster. I have no ear. Mistake me not, reader, nor imagine that I am by nature destitute of those exterior twin appendages, hanging ornaments, and handsome volutes to the human capital. Where do these lines appear? Lamb in a chapter of eras. Now, there are some things which give no offense while implied or taken for granted merely, but express there is much offense in them. Who said Lamb in a bachelor's complaint, who preferred Lamb the critic to Lamb the essayist? Professor Oliver Elton, who wrote Specimens of English Dramatic Poets. Lamb. Lear is essentially impossible to be represented on the stage. On the stage, we see nothing but corporal infirmities and weakness. The importance of race, while we read it, we see not Lear, but we are near him. We are in his mind. We are sustained by a grandeur which baffles the malice of daughters and storms In the aberration of his reason, we discover a mighty irregular power of reasoning, whose commands is this about King Lear, Charles Lamb. As they are without human passions, so they seem to be without human relations. They come with thunder and lightning and vanish to airy music. This is command about Shakespeare's hags and witches, whose command is this Charles Lamb, who authored the essay Artificial Comedy of the Last Comedy, Lamb. As a stylist, he does walk in the past, gathering to himself the pleasant tricks and mannerism of bygone writers, just as a girl plucks flowers instinctively that blend with her looks and carries. The blossoms are culled from other men's gardens, but their blending is all Lamb's own. His style is a mixture, certainly, of there lies a genuinely tragic element who said patter. The poem's old familiar face and hoster are lyric compositions. Who composed them? Lamb. Who wrote John Wood Evil 1802 in blank verse? Lamb. There is perhaps in the whole of Lamb's writings nothing so entirely beautiful, nothing so unmistakably the product of genius as this masterpiece of imaginative prose. It is the feeling of thought of poetry in the garb of prose poetry. This comment of Mark Hunter about one of the Lamb's essay, which essay is this? ड्रीम चिल्ड्रन. फ्रेंड्स अभी आप क्वेश्चन देख लीजिए अच्छे से, सबके आंसर लिखे हुए हैं. ये 64 क्वेश्चंस हैं एंड नंबर 65, नंबर 67 एस.के. अरोरा बुक में ये सारे क्वेश्चन दिए हैं प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए. ये देखिए नंबर 75, एंड नंबर 81 तक ये क्वेश्चन लिखे हुए हैं इसमें. अब 82 नंबर निकालते हैं. 82 number. What wonders will not woman's love perform? Who said? Lamb in the old and the new schoolmaster. And immediately awaking, I found myself quietly seated in my bachelor armchair, where I had fallen asleep with the faithful brigade unchanged by my side. By John L. or James Celia was gone forever. Who said? Lamb in Dream Children. A poor relation is the most irrelevant thing in nature, who said. Lamb in poor relation, who according to Lamb is a Mordecai in your gate, the Lazarus at your door, a loin in your path, a frog in your chamber, a fly in your ointment, a mote in your eye, a triumph to your enemy, an apology to your friend, the hell in harvest, an ounce of sour in a pound of sweet, a poor relation. He is none by his knock, your heart telleth you that his master, a rap between familiarly and respect that demands and at the same time seems to despair of entertainment, who said. Lamb in poor relation, his memory is unseasonable, his compliments preserve, he talks it revolt, his stray pretend pertinacious, and when he goeth away, you dismiss his chair into a corner, a precipitately as possible, and feeling fairly rid of two nuisance, who said. Lamb in poor relations. What is the meaning of the expression opus opertum est in the essays Supernaturate Man? My walk is finished. I play over again for love as the game gamester. Phrase it came for which I won, paid so dear. New Year Eve. God help thee, Elia, how art thou changed? Thou art sophisticated. This excerpt appears in Lamb's New Year Eve. The young man till 30 never feels particularly that he is mortal. Where does it appear? New Year Eve. I am not content to pass away like a weaver's shuttle. I am in love with this great earth. I am content to stand still at the age to which I arrived. A new state of being staggered me. These lines appeared in New Year Eve. वाले फ्रेंड्स देख लीजिए क्वेश्चन आप. Who used the epithet gentle hearted Charles for Charles Lamb? Coleridge. Lamb fell in love with Fanny Kelly, who was an actress. Tales from Shakespeare is by Charles Lamb and his sister Mary. The book summarizes 20 plays of Shakespeare. Lamb summarizes 6 tragedies, while his sister summarizes 14 comedies of Shakespeare. Who was the lifelong friend of Charles Lamb? Coleridge. Delight author, and to whom I owe moments and moods of fancy and of feeling of authorship, thy patent dated, and thou with marble brown and Burton mated. Who wrote these lines is sonnet to Elia? Bernard Barton. The greatest glory of the London magazine is that it found a place for the Prince of English essays, Charles Lamb. 1775-1834. There are essays like Bacon. This is the form Hughes Walker. Book name of the book. The English essay and essays. Fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks with the whole process.